Hello and welcome to the final episode of Behind the Masque. The last few weeks have been a wild ride as we followed the journey of our two young lovers, Romeo and Juliet. Last week, we had two major deaths, Juliet's cousin Tybalt and Romeo's best friend Mercutio. As a result, Romeo is banished from Verona for slaying Tybalt and avenging Mercutio's death. Things got pretty dark, and I'm sorry to say, that won't be the last of the tragedy. There was a bright spot at the end of last week. Friar Lawrence has come up with a plan to ensure the happily ever after of Romeo and Juliet. Here's a quick recap. Juliet's parents have decreed that Juliet must marry Paris on Thursday. To get out of this marriage, Friar Lawrence has concocted a potion that will make it seem like Juliet is dead. Instead of a wedding, the Capulets will prepare for Juliet's funeral. She will be buried in the Capulet vault. In the meantime, Friar Lawrence will send a letter to Romeo explaining the whole situation, and that he must come back to Verona, bust Juliet out of the tomb, and whisk her away to Mantua, where they can grow old together. What could possibly go wrong? Right? Wow, this is actually happening, huh? What if it doesn't work? What if I wake up tomorrow and I have to marry Paris? Or what if Friar Lawrence actually made a poison and he's gonna kill me so that he's not disgraced when he has to marry me twice? Or what if I wake up too soon and I'm stuck in the vault with all my dead cousins and the rotting corpses? Shall I go mad with the rotting flesh of Tybalt by my side? Shall I suffocate on the foul air and die there before my Romeo comes? This is actually pretty risky now that I really think about it. She's dead! Juliet's family is pretty devastated. I feel kind of bad. But I mean, what other choice did we have? So Juliet's family is grieving, and I'm like, it's okay. She's with God. She's in a better place, etc., etc. And ta-da! I'm doing a funeral instead of a wedding. Sometimes I'm so good I scare myself. Hi, I'm Friar John. Kind of new here. Friar Lawrence is training me, and I'm really excited to be part of this. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Huh? Oh yeah, so Friar Lawrence gave me this letter to take to Romeo. I don't know what's in it, but I'm supposed to take it, and that's pretty cool. I got my first official errand. I gotta stop and talk to a couple families along the way, but I'm on this immediately. I'm getting this done. So I gotta go. So I'm walking down the street, minding my own business, when all of a sudden I see this funeral procession, and it's Juliet. I gotta tell Romeo. He's gonna be devastated, but he deserves to know. He deserves to say goodbye. Oh, man. I gotta go. So Balthazar, Romeo's servant, sees Juliet's funeral procession and mistakenly believes that she's dead because, well, who wouldn't? The only people who know about this plan are Friar Lawrence and Juliet. So thinking that Juliet is dead, Balthazar races off to tell Romeo. Let's hope Friar John can beat him there with a letter explaining what's going on. So Balthazar gets to Romeo first, and Romeo makes a pretty extreme decision. He plans to buy a powerful poison from a local apothecary, go to Juliet in the Capulet's monument, and drink the poison after he says goodbye to her. The idea is he'll die beside her so they can be together forever. Meanwhile, Friar John doesn't even get the letter to Romeo at all. He's out visiting families because that's what he's supposed to do, pray for the sick, visit the sick, make sure that he outreaches to the community. And it turns out that there was an exposure to the plague. So during this time period, the plague is going around. He's exposed and he's quarantined.
Coronavirus! Coronavirus!
Right? But he's not allowed to go anywhere, so he's stuck where he is. He doesn't get the letter to Romeo, so he has to go back and tell Friar Lawrence that he wasn't able to deliver it. When Friar John comes back to Friar Lawrence and explains that Romeo did not get the letter, Friar Lawrence sends him to get a crowbar, and then he leaves to go break Juliet out of the tomb so she doesn't wake up, realize she's alone, and freak out. Things are about to get messy again. Romeo purchases his poison, and he goes to Juliet's tomb. Paris is there, laying flowers at Juliet's grave when he hears someone approach, so he goes and hides in the bushes. Then he sees Romeo breaking into the Capulet's tomb and obviously thinks that Romeo is there to vandalize or destroy things or whatever because the two families are mortal enemies. So Paris comes out from his hiding spot and says, "You shouldn't be here. I'm going to defend these people. You need to fight me right now." Romeo again says, "I don't want to fight you. I'm here to do something important. Please just leave. It doesn't need to be this way." Paris will not give in, and so Romeo and Paris fight, and Romeo kills Paris. Romeo actually brings Paris inside of the tomb to lay near Juliet on the floor because he knows how much Paris loved Juliet. So that's actually kind of a noble move on Romeo's part. Then Romeo goes over to Juliet, says his goodbyes, says that she's so beautiful not even death can take her beauty from her, comments on how her cheeks and her lips are still pink because she's not dead. He tells her he loves her, he drinks the poison, and he says, "Thus, with a kiss, I die." Then guess who finally shows up? I got to the tomb and there was blood on the ground. And when I went inside, I found Paris dead on the floor and Romeo dead beside Juliet. This did not work at all. And then Juliet woke up. And she was asking for Romeo. And I tried to get her out of there before she saw it, but then I heard voices coming from outside and I got scared. And I'm not proud of what I did, but I left. Not cool, Friar Lawrence. When he leaves, Juliet mourns over Romeo and sees that he has drunk poison and there's none left for her. So she takes his dagger and says, "This is thy sheath. There rust and let me die." And she's talking about herself. She is the dagger's sheath. Juliet dies by suicide. When Romeo and Juliet are discovered, Friar Lawrence finally tells the truth. The Montagues and the Capulets decide that the price of their children's death was too high. They end the feud and promise to honor both Romeo and Juliet with statues and remembrance. Friar Lawrence feels terrible, but he is forgiven. The prince ends the play with the following lines. "A glooming peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned and some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo." So the play is over, and there's some pretty powerful irony here at the end. The reason Friar Lawrence agreed to marry Romeo and Juliet in the first place was to try to end the family feud, to bring peace between the families. Peace did indeed prevail, but at the worst possible cost. I want to take this moment to impress on you the seriousness of the end of this play. We have 5 young people dead and 2 died by suicide. Please realize that suicide is not a subject to be taken lightly, and it is never a solution to any of your problems. Romeo and Juliet felt like they didn't have any other options, but they did. There were so many other paths that this story could have taken. There were people they could have talked to or other solutions they could have explored. If you or anyone you know needs someone to talk to, please reach out. One of my favorite quotes goes like this: "Place your hand over your heart. Can you feel it? That's called purpose. You're alive for a reason, so don't ever give up." So please, let's learn from Romeo and Juliet that the permanent action of suicide is not a solution. I'm going to lighten the mood back up just a little bit so we can talk about the things that went wrong. Welcome to the segment called Van B Vents.
Shut up and sit down.
So here's what really bugs me about what happened in this play and what probably should have been different. Okay, first of all, if people would have just listened to Romeo when he said he didn't want to fight, probably none of this would have happened in the first place, right? If Tybalt and Mercutio would have listened when Romeo said, I don't want to fight you, Tybalt. I cherish your name as much as I cherish my name. I don't want to do this. If people would have listened, maybe Tybalt wouldn't have been killed. Maybe Mercutio wouldn't have been killed. Maybe Romeo wouldn't have been banished in the first place. Then they wouldn't have had to come up with this crazy plan for them to be together, right? So here's the deal. If someone says they don't want to square up, maybe just listen. Number 2. Friar Lawrence was supposed to be the wise adult in this scenario, but I do not catch that vibe from him at all. Okay, first of all, okay, maybe fine, maybe marry Romeo and Juliet was a good idea to try to end the feud, but here's the deal. They didn't tell anybody, right? They got married, they're happy, whatever. Nobody knows except for like the nurse. So it's like, if you wanted this to be a solution, you gotta inform the people. You gotta let them know what's going on. Also, instead of brewing up this whack plan, why don't we try communication? Or just like take Juliet to Romeo to Mantua without all the theatrics. Of course, that wouldn't have been nearly as interesting of a play, but still, it would have been a little bit better than this crazy plan that they came up with. A lot fewer things could go wrong if we would have just been like, hey, Juliet, you're here. Why don't I just, hop on over to Mantua? You guys can meet up and it'll be fine. Also, you left Juliet in the tomb by herself with her dead husband. On what planet was that possibly a good idea? I know that you were scared, but like you kind of helped create this mess. So you bouncing like that is literally the worst thing you possibly could have done. Number 3, Balthazar needed to mind his own dang business. Okay, I know that he's walking down the street, but why would you want to be the bearer of bad news and tell Romeo that Juliet's dead? Why would you want that to be you? Why wouldn't you be like, oh, hey, Friar Lawrence, you should probably tell Romeo. No, instead he's like, I'm going to go tell. He races off to go tell. Mind your business. Mind your business. I'm sure that it was going to get taken care of. That's not your job. So just chill. I do actually feel kind of bad for Friar John because it wasn't his fault that he got quarantined, right? So maybe we can blame the fleas and the rats for this one with the plague. You know what I'm saying? Romeo and Juliet. With all due respect, the marriage after the 12 hours was a little much. Before the party scene, Romeo tells his friends that he has a bad feeling that something negative will come of what's about to happen, okay? He had that premonition. He had that feeling. Number 2, on the balcony scene, Juliet says she feels like they're moving too quickly. So maybe the lesson that we can learn from this is to trust our instincts. If you think something bad's going to happen, if you think you're making a wrong decision, let's just stop for a minute and let's take stock of what's going on around us. And let's make sure that we're making the right decisions. Let's listen to our guts. Listen to your, well, maybe not your heart, because that's what they're, listen to your instincts. Also, Capulets and Montagues, this whole feud thing was ridiculous in the first place. You don't even remember why you hate each other. It's time to move on. Benvolio is a pure soul, and he deserves all the love. He didn't fight. He minded his own business. He helped his friends when he could, right? He tried his best. He's definitely one of the most underrated characters, Benvolio. I got respect for you. I think that's it. Make sure you check your assignment for this week. I'd like your input on who you think is to blame for kind of how things unfolded. That's the only assignment we have for this week. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in for this series. It's been fun. It's been sad. It's been real. Thanks for watching. This has been Behind the Mask.